to Minister Dunn's income splitting legislation, and this the bill's first reading. But there are only two things that I would like to say about this bill, Mr. Speaker. The first is that this proposal does not increase equity, but rather further increases the gap between those earning the most and those who are really struggling to make ends meet. My second point, Mr. Speaker, is I'd like to outline a couple of points from people from experts who have actually spoken on this bill. Not in Parliament, experts out in the real world. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by saying that reading this bill and listening to the Minister's answers to oral questions today, it is hard to believe that the Minister in charge of Revenue was actually the Minister in charge of Revenue under a Labor government. His apparent lack of empathy to those who are really battling is baffling. Mr. Dunn is about to get a tax cut of around $140 a week. $140 a week. But a person in the electorate that member purports to represent on the median wage is going to get about $5 a week. That is simply not fair or equitable, and neither is this bill. Now, Mr. Cullen alluded to the Minister's passion about this issue, and he said it was commendable. Well, I would not use the word commendable, Mr. Speaker. I would say misguided. If the Minister concentrated his passions on securing real benefits for all Kiwis, then I would commend him. But, Mr. Speaker, that is not the case with this legislation. It does not benefit all Kiwis at all. It is not about families. It's about high-income families who do have choices. The Minister speaks about choice a lot. However, choice implies a level of economic freedom. Necessity does not. As the IRD noted in its report on income splitting, and I quote, "It might be perceived as unfair that the benefit from income splitting increases as the primary earner income increases, providing more benefit to couples with higher incomes." That is from the IRD. So the real question is, does income splitting actually help those who really need it? Those who are torn between going back to work full-time, working part-time, or staying at home and looking after children. Now remember that Mr. Dunn's proposal is only applicable to families with dependent children. The answer to the question is no. It does not help those who really need assistance. Working for families is in place to help struggling families, and Mr. Dunn suggests keeping both. The median household income is around about $60,000. The median wage for those in paid employment is around $41,000. Therefore, many households have both parents working full-time now and would not benefit from income splitting. Those families who generally do have choice around whether one parent or both parents work tend to be those who earn the most. It just makes sense. Now, what I'd like to do for the members over that side of the House who have no understanding whatsoever is just outline three scenarios. Now, these scenarios assume a two-parent household with at least one dependent child with one partner working. Now, the first one with a salary of $40,000. $40,000. Under Mr. Key's tax cut, they're going to get $8.65 a week. With income splitting, they'll get about $23 a week. So they're going to be about $32 a week better off. That's for $40,000. If you earn $100,000 with a tax cut, you're going to get about $38 a week. Income splitting, you're going to get $163 a week. You're going to be $202 a week better off. However, if you earn $140,000, the tax cut's going to give you $66 a week. Income splitting's going to give you about $180 a week. You're going to be $240 a week better off. If you're earning $40,000, of which, let's remember, about 70% of Kiwis earn $40,000 or less. If you're in a household with $40,000, you're going to be $32 a week. If you earn $140,000, you're going to be $240 a week better off. How does that promote equity? In fact, the regulatory impact statement accompanying the bill spells it out. Quote, the most significant gains would go to higher single-income families, with the lowest gains going to low-income families. Nothing has changed on that side of the house. It's simply not fair. Now, a couple where one partner earns $140,000 a year and the other earns nothing is going to get $9,000. This isn't about families. This is about high-income families. Mr. Dunn says, oh yeah, but not everyone's going to take this up. What? What? Not everyone's going to take this up. Of course they're going to take it up. These people are going to say, I pay enough tax, I'm going to grab that $9,000. It's the people earning $140,000 that are going to benefit, not the people who are earning the low income. Mr. Speaker, the cost of this proposal by the IRD is around $500 million a year. Now remember, the government cut the budget to early childhood education by $250 million over 4 years. This is really going to cost struggling parents. I would have thought that pumping more money into high-quality early childhood education would be the type of policy that really does provide choice for struggling parents. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Dunn set up the Families Commission and yet sits with a government that cut funding to the early childhood sector. It set that sector back 10 years. Now that is the real travesty that Mr. Dunn and United Future should be fighting. That is what they should be standing up for if they value parents and children. Mr. Dunn says that anyone opposing this bill does not value families and is engaged in the politics of envy. Now, Mr. Speaker, that is the sort of rhetoric, and you know this, Mr. Speaker, that is the sort of rhetoric we hear when there is actually no logical argument to back up a claim. And, Mr. Speaker, there is no logical argument to back this bill. This brings me to my second point, Mr. Speaker, which is to relay the comments of a couple of experts who have spoken about this bill. But first of all, let's be honest. Naomi Adams outlined this. Let's be honest. The reason we are debating this bill is because it is a supply and confidence agreement between Mr. Dunn and the National Party. When I questioned Mr. Dunn about this at FEC, he said, supply and confidence agreement. That's all he said. When I questioned National Finance Minister Bill English about this, about the possibility of income splitting, when he appeared before the FEC, he said, well, he ruled it out. He said, well, it's not well targeted, it's inequitable, and it probably won't go ahead. He also said, there are better targeted approaches to this, and there is. It's called Working for Families, put in by the Labor government that helps 300,000 families in this country. That is targeted assistance. This bill is not. This bill is not. So, Mr. Speaker, we are going through the motions, and the National Government will vote for this bill to go through the Select Committee, and we'll sit there, we'll hear these submissions in the knowledge that this is going to be voted down in the second reading. Bill English has pretty much said this as much. Attorney General Chris Finlayson has said as much. He said this is discriminatory, and we all know that whatever Chris Finlayson said must be right. The guy walks on water, he's told us as much himself. The Herald's economics reporter called this bill, and I quote, unfair, unaffordable and unlikely to happen. Mary Holmes said this is bad prioritisation of spending and will do nothing to help low and middle income New Zealanders. There are very, very few people outside of a little square box on that side of the house who actually think this is a good idea, because it definitely will not help those who really need it. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, this proposal is not equitable. It won't help those families that are really struggling at the moment to make ends meet. It will do nothing to alleviate child poverty. It does not provide choice. Because, Mr. Speaker, choice implies a level of economic freedom. At the moment, there are many families where both parents are working, earning $40,000 or below out of economic necessity. This bill will not help them, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, I oppose this bill. Thank you very much.